My name is Ilya. I run a company called Cider. We're a Bay Area-based organization. We were founded in 2015. I am also a software chair for Forbes Business Council. We have a really great group of people in this program. I think within the software program, we have about 100 members. And we will be holding these roundtables once every month and a half, every 2 months or so. Usually the goal of these roundtables is to have everybody network with each other, shoot ideas around, and have great speakers to speak on current trends, as well as on topics that are very much technology and industry specific. And with that, I invited Bruce Werner, who's on the call here. Bruce runs a consulting company, and Bruce, you will tell us a little bit more about you and your organization. Bruce and I were actually working on an article together right now, which should be published in the next week or two. And just by working through that article, we came up with this idea, and I figured that it's actually worthwhile to have it covered on this roundtable. And I think it'll be a very interesting discussion after Bruce actually presents the information. And the information itself and competitive advantage is it's not new, but it's very relevant still to date. There were books written on it. And Bruce, so please go ahead and start. We have only about 15, maximum 20 minutes for this presentation. And then what I'd like to do is allocate rest of the time for a roundtable discussion.
Thank you. And I believe I need to have control to be able to share my screen.
You have it now.
Okay, and since I can't see you, can people just confirm you have visibility of the opening slide in blue?
Not yet.
Okay. Let's see if I can get this right. Bear with me.
Now we see it.
Okay. So thank you, everyone. My name is Bruce Werner. Thank you, Ilya, for having me here today. I run a consulting practice which works with private and family businesses, solving the problems that keep owners awake at night. It always involves competitive strategy, capital structure, management, both private and family businesses. The topic today is building competitive advantage. Just 2 or 3 slides on theory and then 2 or 3 slides on the practice. You know, the reason for dealing with competitive strategy is to get a sustained advantage over your competition. You really want an unfair advantage. If you don't have a sustained advantage, your business doesn't survive. And so how do we compete? You know, in the technology and software world, it's about innovation. You either need to have a new product, increase efficiency, or dramatically better quality. In prior decades, we used to say better, faster, cheaper. While most folks on this call are out in the Valley, I'm actually in Chicago. I know we have one person in New Jersey. Actually spent my earlier days in technology, both in Route 28 in Boston, as well as out at Stanford. So it's how do you compete and how do you increase your advantage? So in the, I spoke to a bunch of tech CEOs to calibrate for this. And so under the better, faster, cheaper theme, you know, let's talk about AI and machine learning. What are people doing to innovate, to do better? So things like form recognition to process purchase orders get an 80% increase in productivity. Some of you are familiar with net promoter scores for more retail consumer oriented businesses. They're now using sentiment analysis to get more context and get more than just a number to learn how to work with their customers. More detail, you know, video and text analysis on how people use search engines and industry-specific chatbots so that you can do more interaction with the client before switching over to a human. So that's examples of innovation to gain an advantage in something core. Some of those were reducing cost. Some are to increase customer interaction. Again, my key point is you need a sustained competitive advantage. Strategy is always about top down and you implement bottom up. So once you pick an industry to compete in, the industry actually controls most of what your choices are, more than you think.
Yes,
so the questions you need to ask yourself are, what's controllable versus non-controllable? So if I want to make batteries, I need lithium or rare earth elements. I don't control that. Pretty cut and dry example, but what do you control or not control? What's the organic growth rate of your industry? So we're used to software companies having very rapid growth rates, but eventually they taper off. So think about when ERP systems started decades ago versus now you think of Oracle and SAP as being a little bit sleepy. Every industry has a natural profitability rate. It's how customers value your business. So if you're selling accounting software, it's really a commodity. If you're doing really great online advertising, in the Googles of the world, you have a much higher level of profitability because you're adding more value to the clients. Certainly rate of change is industry specific. From a strategist viewpoint, if you look at automobiles, steel, personal computers, and software, all those industries developed along the same path of started as a bunch of independents, cottage industry. They started to grow, industry consolidated, 2 or 3 people, competitors dominate the industry, gobble up the others. And through that, the rate of change slows down. It just happens about 100 times faster in technology than it does in old manufacturing businesses. And certainly externalities and regulations are an influencing factor. So in the software business, think about what the EU wants to do with social media, or what over here people are doing with social media. All these are about what's about my industry, what can I control, not control. That creates the framework for what are the decisions I can make to increase my advantage. Then you kind of have to, that's the outward looking view. You have to work inwardly. What can I do with my business? So these are the practical questions of what do my customers want that I'm not offering them now? What are the weaknesses that I need to fix just to stay even? So supply chain is a typical example of that. Will substitute products and new innovations make me obsolete, particularly in technology? For some of you who may have read a book by Porter from the mid-'80s, he kind of laid all this out in a very succinct way. The book's 30 or 40 years old. It still works. To Ilya's opening comment, it's not that there's something radically new here. It's just the focus. And because the rate of change is so quick in your business, you just need to be a little more agile with it. What are the industry issues I need to deal with, whether it's regulation for social media or environmental issues because I'm in a hardware business, or social justice matters that change how we interact with our clients. It all comes back to how do I improve my competitive advantage? And I'll add, should I make or buy the solution to that problem? Most of us, I think about organic growth. How do I add more customers? Do I add more salespeople, more marketing, whatever? Sometimes it's easier to buy someone to do that. That's why Microsoft doesn't really invent a bunch of stuff anymore. They go out and they buy someone. That's part of the natural evolution of a business. And the last step is really, what are the assets you have to work with? You start out with how do you want to compete? What are the industry constraints you want to work in? Some hardcore self-assessment, look in the mirror, then what do you have to work with? And it really boils down to people, money, relationships, and technology. The capital follows the talent. So it's always about the people and the relationships. But you kind of think of, if these are the levers to control your business and gain advantage, this is what you have to work with. So, strategy is not a one and done type of thing. Like many things in business, it's a cycle. You want to establish a plan, follow the data, manage your biases, come back, self-assess, and adjust. It's really about being, 2 things important are, you got to be disciplined and avoid bright, shiny objects that distract you. Especially in technology more than other businesses, there's always a new, whiz-bang thing that we think is going to change the business. Doesn't always work out that way. And you can waste resources on things that aren't strategically important. So a couple quick bullet points from talking with CEOs who've been through this. This is feedback from a guy who's had 3 successful exits in the software world. He says, I only look at 4 things: product, pricing, vertical, and channel partners. These are the questions he used to position himself. What's different about my product? What makes it special and unique? How am I going to price this? Am I going for the high price, kind of more the Cadillac? Am I going for something middle or cheap? Because that determines how I compete with my competition. Am I being very deeply focused in my vertical, like I sell architectural software? Or is it a communication platform like Slack where anyone can use it? And then who are the channel partners I need to build my business who get me the distribution? So this is how he looks at his competitive strategy. 2 other CEOs who are distributors. One was a Microsoft partner. We're selling Microsoft products. Realized Office 365 is a commodity. He didn't want to go broke. And he certainly didn't want the price war. So he took a different approach. I'm going to take Office 365. I'm going to get best of breed products for cloud, mobile support, and other. I'm going to package this as a solution. I'm going to put my brand on it. I'm going to drive that out. And so instead of selling a commodity, he now has increased his margin, has much greater stickiness, and he's on he's got growing MRRs instead of one-time package sales, and he turned what could be a problem into a great opportunity. Another CEO sells ERP systems, think SAP, Oracle, Bond, things like that. He realized most of those implementations fail. Customers are unhappy and said, hey, this makes no sense. Instead of selling the software, let's see what's the customer paying and how do we make the software adapt to the customer needs. So they developed their own proprietary methodology for assessing need, and they're working backwards to what's the right software fit. And they drove their success rate way up and carved out a really nice niche in a complicated area. So I think I used 16 of my 15 minutes, and happy to answer any questions, and thank Ilya for having me today.
Bruce, this was great. Thanks for covering it. You actually flew through it in 9 minutes, so you're a rock star. So I do want to thank you for selling us some additional time on this call. I think all of these points are extremely important, and we use a lot of these in our company. So competitive advantage is challenging to come by. But when companies do, I mean, look at Amazon, look at all the other monsters, and especially with the stories around Apple Computer and them having the legal battle with Epic Games in the 30% fees that they charge. But at the end of the day, if they're able to achieve that and they're able to sustain it and they're able to at least let others compete, it's great. So what I would like to do on the rest of this call is for everybody, first of all, if you have questions for Bruce, let's please ask them. But what I would like to do is have this to be more of a conversation rather than just questions. And let's start. Does anyone have any questions for Bruce? Everybody is muted, so you would have to unmute yourselves.
I do.
Please.
Yeah, thanks, Bruce. Dan Hammond, Tech Exec LLC. Question is, are there cases that you may sort of share with us or talk about where maybe a combination of software plus hardware achieve higher competitive advantage than just a pure software play, or tying software to anything else other than just software?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Having been around long enough, I look at the history of the technology industry to see what lessons I can learn. And there's been this pendulum of hardware. So in the early days, like ENIAC, you had these huge computers that could barely push anything out. And then as we learned how to get the circuits closer together, and Bill Shockley created integrated circuits instead of tubes, we moved towards personal computers. The guys at that computer, which was the IBM of its day, said, who would ever want a personal computer? That was the end of the second largest computer company in the world. And so the pendulum swung towards localized compute. And then it has since swung towards client server, which was intermediate. And now it's swung back the other way to cloud-based. That's all because of material science and how we move molecules around. And so that has driven the software business. So your question is, do we compare, do you link hardware and software or software and something else? Where we are today going forward, which is what matters, floppers and software are pretty much decoupled. Hardware is a commodity. Your pennies per gigabyte of storage or pennies per, flops of compute power, it just doesn't matter anymore. It's really about software and I think what's the user experience and what are the other things with the software, because as you look how businesses function going forward, every company is a software company, is a technology company. The internal ways that companies function, receivables, payables, bills of materials, just how everyone works, the technology has become the oxygen of business. So I always say, you always want to be closer to your customer. How do you take your software offering and make it more integral to how your customer works so they can never fire you? I can change a mail server. It's unpleasant, but I can do it. But if I can't decouple you from my manufacturing plant or my customer service operation, or it's really the barrier to exit gets too high. You've heard barrier to entry. Like, I can't get in the business because I don't have the capital to go buy a big item. Barrier to exit's the secret in software. You are so entrenched, even if you stink, they don't fire you. And that is one of the best competitive advantages in the world because, you're locked in. So always get close to the customer, make yourself integral to how they breathe in their operations, and that gives you much better competitive advantage.
Bruce, I have one
Thank
for
you.
you about services industry. I've heard and read, plenty of stuff about competitive advantage from, bigger companies like Ilya a minute ago was talking about Apple, Fortnite, Amazon. There's plenty of books on these, huge
Sure.
multi-billion-dollar monoliths. I advise a lot of small startups. I work for, a company that's medium-sized company. I'm wondering, I run into a lot of buddies who work for companies of say 10, 20, 30 people. And a lot of them are say like ad agencies or PR firms or things like that, companies that are not gigantic, companies that are 10, 20, 30 people. What have you read or what research have you found on competitive advantages for services firms or for, firms that where the work product is essentially human labor and, they're not that large?
Right. So I certainly work with a lot of those businesses. I'm on a board of a company that advises small businesses, so I get a lot of feedback. My first view is keep things simple. When you're running a 20-person PR agency or a 10-person PR agency, all the things, if it's on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, it's irrelevant to how you run your business every day. I always, especially with smaller companies, focus is really important because you have very limited resources. And if you're in professional services, all you sell is time and your inventory goes stale every day. So a laser focus on really pick one or two things and do it really, really well. Don't try to be all things to all people. Learn how to say no. And certainly in those smaller businesses, culture is incredibly important because the team is too small to tolerate someone who doesn't fit. Those are kind of like off the cuff, regardless of industry. You still got to do great work, right? But you got to be really focused because you can't spread things too thin.
CJ, I think you unmuted your line. Did you have a question?
No, in fact, just to my comments on what's happening in the marketplace as far as the advantage or competitive advantage is concerned. I think there are a couple of things which are very important. One is there is a lot of discussion on DevOps, correct? And DevOps gives so much of strength to developers to make sure that it's a dynamic environment. And it is one of the fastest environment where, from the time that the person is coming up with the concept till the time the product or platform is developed, it's very fast. There is a lot of technology involved and things like that. So I think that's one way, which is what I would strongly consider, because I come from a different type of enterprise. It's a large organization. I work for NTT Data. We have some of the roster of clients we have, they are part of Fortune 500. So what we see is that one is the DevOps, which is what is very critical. Second, I think is the area which is more in terms of the data part of it. When I say data, which means that how is that you are able to assimilate data? How is that you are able to ingest data from various different sources, and how is that you are able to use that data to make sure that customers are able to take advantage of the intelligence, which is what is building up. That I think is so much of value these days that customer cannot undermine that. I think those are two areas which I feel is someone know those who are developing software should take into consideration.
Thanks, CJ. Anybody else have any comments, questions for Bruce, or we can also have a discussion on any other topic in the industry as well.
I had one, Safir here, and Bruce actually touched on it. It was in the 4 bullets you mentioned for software companies from a strategy point of view. The last bullet there was leveraging the channel. And I think a lot of software companies either forget to do that or don't do this effectively enough, because typically software companies, especially when they start in the, I guess, startup stage or even early stage, they don't have the same level of resources, sales, business development resources, both in terms of talent and budgets. And a really smart way of, really scaling faster is to use the channel. Not just from a resources point of view, but also one other point somebody brought up, it could be Ilya, is the ability or the experience that some of these channel partners have with the customer, and how they really understand the entire landscape, the problem statement, and the nuances of what the customer really needs. And then they can actually apply what is the best software solution to address that customer's problem. So they're in a very unique situation, which none of the software providers, at least on day 1, probably not even on day 100, maybe on day 365, they may actually understand the same level of depth, as to what the customer's real challenges are. So what I'm saying is, I think taking advantage or leveraging these channel partners for those relationships, for their understanding of the customer's problems, can actually help software providers scale faster.
Thanks for bringing that up. Let me reinforce your statement by turning it from a slightly different angle. We spoke a few minutes ago, Adam talked about professional service companies. Businesses either sell services or products, whether they're physical products or software products. Regardless of your industry, the services companies typically generate revenue through relationships and what we call business development. Product companies cannot prosper without having a well-established distribution channels. As a general rule of thumb, unless you're huge, you can't develop your own distribution channels. And so if you are selling any type of product, hardware, software, bread, butter, whatever, the secret to success is getting the distribution partners set up and having them carry your product, because they have all your customers. You're never going to raise enough money or have enough time to go one by one through all those customers. You can do it, but your business won't prosper. It's all about distribution. And so when you think about people like Home Depot, Lowe's, Menards, any of the big box retailers that redefined the American retail landscape in the 90s, they changed the nature of distribution. And that's why those companies went from 0 to gazillions, because they figured, they stood between the product manufacturer and the customer. It's the same thing in software and traditionally the same thing in hardware. It's all about understanding distribution. So when you think about your competitive advantage and how you're going to grow your business, you got to have distribution in there. How are we going to reach all those decision-making customers and clients that we're never going to be able to reach ourselves? Or, you know, we can stay a small business and that'd be fine and be local, that's fine. But if you want to grow and prosper and, you know, be of consequence, as they say, it's all about distribution. Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up, Safir.
I think also one other interesting, but in many cases dismissed fact about competitive advantage. I'm going to speak for myself in the services industry, is that although my company doesn't have a physical product, what we offer are multiple services. And differentiating ourselves in this competitive landscape is very challenging. But at the end of the day, in order to actually have that competitive advantage, is, as you said, Bruce, it's not thinking about what we sell, but to the point, to the pains that our customers are actually facing. So selling those pains. And I think the challenging piece and what my team and I are working on is actually figuring out what are those pains in the various verticals that we're targeting. And we're definitely starting to see light at the end of the tunnel in the various methodologies and approaches that we're using, with the help of Adam, who's on the call here, and the rest of my team. And I think we're hopefully, keeping the fingers crossed, are approaching to a certain extent that competitive advantage via positioning and solving, trying to approach customers via these challenges that they're facing and those pain points that they're facing. All right, anybody else? Catherine, maybe, Manish, any of you have any comments or points? How are you handling that in your industry? Manish, go ahead.
Yeah, so I have a question. Thanks, Bruce. And one question I had was, you mentioned a book, and then second question is about the pricing. What was the book name, Bruce? You said about...
The author's last name is Porter. It's either Richard or Robert. I can't remember right now. It was published in, I think, 84, 86. It's called Competitive Strategy, published by Harvard Business School. It became kind of the Bible of strategy that changed the strategy industry. Certainly happy to follow up later with the exact spec. I know you can buy it on Amazon. You can buy used copies for $2 or $3. I still have mine from business school on the shelf behind me. And I will tell you, the first 3 or 4 chapters are what you need to read. The rest is kind of embellishment. But there's this little chart of industry structure, which sums up everything. And once you comprehend that, the light bulbs go off. So if all you do is read those first 2 or 3 chapters, it gives you a mental framework for dealing with strategy going forward. There's lots of ways of doing it. This just happened to be simple, straightforward, and has just stood the test of time.
Awesome.
I think
Thank you.
Michael Porter, actually.
Michael, thank you.
Okay.
I have just quick one comment, maybe for Bruce. Is one thing is, competitive advantage is something that we as a company are struggling as well. So we run an online marketplace for college counseling. Mm-hmm. And it's really hard to build a moat around a business like that. And we struggle on a day-to-day basis on what can we do today that's something that would, make us stand apart, or, that would, keep us, in a good place compared to maybe some new players that might be coming in, on a day-to-day basis. And only thing that we could really think of is maybe the early start and being there first and having that couple of years of early starter advantage is the only thing that we can really think of. Other than that, most of the technology and lots of these things can be done by anybody in these day and time. Can that be something, a reliable thing to really depend on as a competitive advantage? That's it for a business like ours.
So interesting, about 10 years ago, I was involved in launching a college counseling business. very non-digital, completely face-to-face kind of boutique consulting. I would actually answer your question by tying back to my prior discussion about distribution. My assumption from what you've told me is that you get your revenue from the individual student or the parent seeking counseling. And so you need to go direct business to consumer, which is very, very expensive to do. I would say is you got to figure out your distribution. You're not going to have enough money to go do enough SEO to get 1 million students online. It's going to be challenging. I would suggest going out the other way of who already has these people, has the eyeballs, and I can go make a deal with them and get some stickiness there. The college marketplace, having done a couple of things, there's lots of companies already selling to those students or those parents. It's a pretty well-established place. Everyone wants a piece of that pie because it's so big and there's so much turmoil, and every year you get a whole new crop of customers. I would think you need to examine who already has all those customers that you want. How do you approach them, and how do you make them your customer? So here's a great example. I have a client who's a real estate company. Most people think of real estate, they think of Zillow or online ways to buy houses. These guys are one of the largest Century 21 brokers in the country. They said, wait a minute, that's not how we want to do it. We're making the individual brokers our customer. So we got hundreds of thousands of brokers all over. Think about who sells houses in your neighborhood. A lot of them are people who work part-time or, you know, it's a side gig or whatever. They said, we're going to make them our customer. We're going to incent them to work for us. And then we're going to drive other products and services through that channel. So first they sell the house, then they sell the title brokerage, then they sell the insurance to insure the house, and then they sell the home warranty for the furnace and the refrigerator at the house. What else could, you know, if we could sell diapers through that broker, we do it too. So, you know, tying together my distribution channel, I mean, it's a Century 21 broker. Their average house is $200,000. We work in blue collar neighborhoods around the country. So, you know, it's the opposite of sexy. These guys are crushing it because we have distribution. So to Pradeep's point is, who's your distribution channel? You know, it shouldn't be very hard to figure out. There's going to be a list of 5 or 10 guys. You got to get one of them to do it. Otherwise, I don't know how you get to customers in scale, in volume. And so, you know, happy to chat, you know, more offline if you want, but if you don't develop distribution, it could be challenging.
Thank you, Bruce. That was very smart. Thanks.
So I think Ilya and Bruce, this is a great initiative. This is what can help some of the small businesses. It can also give a lot of intelligent understanding to organizations like us and to people like us. I think there are a couple of things which is what we practice. One is contextualization. And this is a word which might be used many times, but I think the most important aspect that I have seen, which has been very successful, is to understand the buying pattern, making sure that you are able to get aligned to customer, not only from the standpoint of solution, but what is the landscape within the buying ecosystem. Finding out and researching on a company to have that dialogue which is contextualizing your discussion. I think that's one which is very, very critical. The second, what I see here is the advantage of having some bit of innovative ideas that you can bring to the table that can help you differentiate. I was talking to a company, those who are into learning platform business. They provide services to large clients, the LinkedIn's of the world and things like that. And this is on the side, you know, but they were asking us, you know, what's that is we can do because we have reached to plateau. I mean, 13 years we are in the business and we have hardly reached $9 million business. And I said, okay, So I think the areas which is what I was suggesting is, hey, have you looked at offering learning services to clients, those who are into back office operations and things like that. So I'm saying coming up with those new ideas to see that they are able to seek out for a dormant market, or they are able to have some kind of play by handling or infusing bots or artificial intelligence in their platform, things like that. So there are multiple ways of making sure that at the front end itself, you are able to differentiate. I just will take 2 minutes to, because I think it is so valuable, it might be valuable. My understanding is I was called for a very large contract, Bruce. This is $100 million contract, which was supposed to be signed by Google. Google has this platform called AdWords. We were supposed to provide support and services for this platform. And we won the contract. So now I'm going back to my customer and saying, how is that you are able to decide for entity data? And the thing that he mentioned was really alarming. It blew me off. What he said is that, look, CJ, your individuals came to us so well prepared in terms of understanding our platform, understanding our challenges, all different things, right at the first time. There were individuals, those who were trying to seek out information from us, trying to find out as to where is the pain point and how is that they can help. If all of you are able to do your research, if you are able to get in touch with the right individuals right in the beginning, and you are able to prepare yourself much faster than others, and you are able to have that discussion, very, very intelligent discussion, much ahead of time, that's one which is what is the differentiation. That's what people are interested in having. So I'm making sense to you guys.
I think that's a great demonstration of, in one of my slides, I spoke about people and the money follows talent. Business is still about people, fast, better, faster, cheaper, smarter folks who work harder, who are more focused, who are laser focused on customer needs. Those businesses always do better. That's just a truth of the world. And so that's why if you're in charge of your business, who you hire, who you bring on your team is really one of the most critical decisions you can make, especially for a smaller business, because each person is so impactful.
Yeah. Bruce, another question I have, this is Manish, is regarding the pricing. No direct question, but in general, the product can be the high-end market, mid-market, or cheap. Any strategy for a small business to go? Because I think the bigger the cost, like the highest dollar amount is for the branded products. I don't think a small business should start there. Any direction between mid-size, the mid cost or the cheap? Any historical strategy related to that?
So it's a multi-dimensional question. Let me lay out a few things let me lay out a few rubrics to help you think through it, because I can't reach a single conclusion. So you got to think about pricing strategy, your competitive position in the marketplace, and your capital structure. So you really have to, you're not in business to make revenue, you're in business to make profits. And so I was on the board of a $500 million software company, and we said, what's the forecast? He said, I can give you any revenue you want. What gross margin do you want? Tell me the gross margin, I'll tell you the revenue number. So for smaller businesses, I think you got to focus on margin, because it goes right to cash flow and capital structure. If you are a high risk, high reward guy and say, I'm going to have a low price, thin margin, I'm going to try to buy some market share, but I have enough capital to last long enough, then that may be a great answer. And that's an old tried and true play in software. Give it away, freemium, whatever you want. As long as you raise 20 million in venture, they assume you're going to blow 10 million in marketing before it works. that's not right for every business. If you're a privately owned business without an outside capital source and you're a little more risk averse, you may say, listen, I need to have my minimum margins at a certain point so I can survive. I'm willing to keep my costs low. I'll have a slower rate of growth because that's okay. Because I don't have a sugar daddy to go give me 10 million bucks. I got to figure this out. So, those things are all interconnected. And when you think about what's my competitive strategy, where do I position myself in the marketplace? It's also how much dry powder I have and how much risk do I as a business owner want to take. And risk is always the key issue and the least discussed. And certainly I serve as an outside director in a bunch of companies, and whether you're a single owner or you have a board or whatever, I always encourage people to spend more time assessing the risk because you'll make better decisions overall. So pricing is the result of a process, not the driver of the process. And let's go back to distribution. If I can't remember, I think Pradeep, we're talking about distribution for the college counseling business. If you can go crack that code and get a huge distribution deal, you're going to probably drop your price and just scoop up customers. If you can't get the deal you want, you probably need a little higher price because you need more margin because you won't make it up on volume. Right. Classic strategy questions. Position, price, capital structure, risk tolerance, culture. That's the ball game.
Awesome, thank you. How do we get hold of you, Bruce?
Pardon?
How do I reach out to you?
With Ilya's permission, I have a website, phone number, email, all available.
Well, guys, let's do this. Does anyone else have any other questions? Because my next step is I'd like to, first of all, thank Bruce for really an amazing insights that you've provided. You've given us a great favor with this, and I'd like to return the favor and give you a chance to let us know who your customers are, how we can assist you with any sort of referrals. Please let us know.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. Glad to know I am of service. I work with private and family businesses from startup through $500 million. The bulk of my customers are between 10 and 100 million in revenue. I am industry agnostic. I've worked in regulated insurance, finance, healthcare. I started an electric power company. I've worked on dairy farms to export sperm and eggs to foreign countries to build dairy herds. I'm an engineer by training, a Stanford grad. And so I'm about solving problems. So it's about defining what your problem is, your goal, and building a path to get there. Always happy to have a conversation and make new friends.
That's great. Thanks, Bruce. And everybody, what we'll do together with Forbes is after this call, probably within a day or two, and I'll let Ashley kind of say what that cadence will be. We will send out some review notes and also Bruce's contact details, if Bruce will provide them, in order for you to be able to reach out to him. Also, I'm not sure if everybody here is part of the software group. I believe, CJ, you're part of the Technology Council. Yeah, so I sent out an email with a questionnaire, and I'll resend it to this group and to the rest of the software group. I would like to get feedback from everybody on the type of speakers and the type of topics you would like to have covered on this. And it will be my pleasure to find great subject matter experts like Bruce for this group and really just have a quality roundtable discussion.
Fantastic initiative. This is something which is what is so useful. I know when somebody is running a small business, they are really interested in not only having the network, but having a kind of a market-led intelligence like Bruce is providing. That's something which is would be of great help to most of this people, those are joining. Thanks for that.
Thanks for the feedback, CJ. All right, Ashley, do you have any kind of final notes or mentions you'd like to state?
No, just so, yeah, I know we have a mixed group here of both members or even members from other councils and some people who aren't even a part of the Forbes Council. So we'd love for you to learn more about us, of course, and let us know if you feel like this is a group that you would be benefited from, and of course, you know, be able to contribute to as well. We're a community that we see, you know, there being it's always about give and take, right? Us being able to provide value and give it. So let us know. I will reach out to those of you who are not a part of the community to see if I can answer any of your questions. And those of you who are, our next event, and everyone on the call, our next event is November 17th. So you'll also be kind of pinged about that. We hope that you'll continue to join us and make these consistent so that we can really get to know one another. So Ilya will be making sure that he gets everyone together, and hopefully we build this, this continued connection.
And I also want to welcome you to refer folks who are in the technology space. We like to have it more in the software area, that who are interested in these calls, even if they are not Forbes Business Council members. So if you would just make an introduction to me, I, together with Ashley, will make a determination if they will qualify. We'd like to really keep it very close-knit community, and we'll be happy to invite them to these calls. I think there's a lot to be learned and a lot to be shared from everybody.
Absolutely. And also to kind of wrap things up as well, as a final note, if you guys have expertise, and perhaps, Ilya, this is something that we can do maybe, if you have expertise or something that you feel, you know, that would benefit the group, let us know that, you know, because as we build out these events, we're always looking for additional speakers, just like Bruce shared his knowledge and, you know, his expertise today. We'll be looking for more of that in the future. So, you know, let me know if there's something that you're interested in. And the next meeting is November 17th, Manish. And this is the website. Here, I'll just put it in the chat here, that you can go to find information on that. So November 17th, we'll have like another speaker or, you know, another topic that's launched there. It's not up there yet, but we'll have it up there soon.
And again, everybody, shoot me ideas of what you'd like to hear. Maybe there are challenges. Maybe you're having issues with competitive advantage. We can cover that more if interested. But in general, we do want to have this to be really insightful more than anything else.
Awesome.
All
Well,
right.
Thank you everyone for your time.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Bruce.
Have a good one.
Thank you.